The BBC should be valued more.
In a world of AI and mis and disinformation, in a world where one of the most powerful men in the world is Elon Musk, who himself has shared at least misinformation and arguably disinformation, without the BBC, democracy in this country will become even more threatened than it already is.
Deportation proceedings are beginning against the woman convicted of harassing the family of the missing toddler Madeleine McCann. She was given a 6-month prison sentence, which was less than the time she'd spent on remand. LBC's Midlands reporter George Ike has more.
After Julia Van Delt was convicted of harassing Kate and Joe McCann, the couple called her vulnerable and said they hoped she'd get the help she needed. The Home Office has now confirmed deportation proceedings have begun against the Polish woman, and it's likely she'll be sent back to Lubin, where she's originally from. George Ike, LBC, Leicestershire.
A teenager's been arrested after a 4-year-old girl was critically injured by a firework in Lancashire. She suffered serious injuries in Burnley on bonfire night. Lancashire police are questioning a 15-year-old boy. And the COP30 Environmental Summit has opened officially in Brazil. The country's host president, Lula da Silva, has been calling for further and faster action on climate change. In the city, the FTSE 100 closed up 105 points at 97.87. The pound buys $1.32 and €1.14. LBC weather: a band of rain will push across eastern areas overnight. Clear spells will develop behind that, but more rain will then arrive in the west. We'll see a low in the far north of around 5 degrees. From Global's newsroom, for LBC, I'm Tim Daly.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with Iain Dale.
Hello, a very good evening. It's 9:03 on LBC. We are streaming this hour on the Global Player and the LBC YouTube channel, should you wish to watch us. And why wouldn't you? Because we have one of the most gorgeous-looking baronesses in the House of Lords with us for the next hour. Am I allowed to say that, or am I going to get struck off?
No, because you're right.
Jackie Smith is with us, ladies and gentlemen. Lots of For the Many fans tuning in. We're not going to recreate the podcast over the next hour, so no smutty questions, please. But we are going to talk about your ministerial responsibilities, because you are Minister for Skills. Is that because you also got universities, you've got equalities? What's your actual official long title?
My official title is Minister for Skills, but you're right, and Minister for Women and Equalities. And now, of course, not only am I Minister for Skills in the Department for Education, where we cover further education and higher education, as you say, universities, but also, since the last reshuffle, I'm also in the Department of Work and Pensions, because elements of that skills portfolio, particularly relating to apprenticeships and adult skills, are now over in the Department of Work and Pensions. And then the Office of Equality and Opportunity is where my Minister for Equalities and Women and Equalities. It
used to be so much easier, didn't it? When ministers were in one department, we knew what they were for. And you're just making a power grab now.
No. What we're doing is we are demonstrating the significance of skills to this government, linking up more closely with the labour market, the employment support work that goes through DWP, and putting skills where they need to be, at the centre of everything we're trying to do with respect to growth and opportunity.
Right, well, we'll come on to that in a moment, but let me just remind you, this is your opportunity to put your questions to Jackie for the next hour. It's not just going to be in her having a little chat about things. 0345 6060 973 is the number to call. I do want to really restrict it to Jackie's portfolio. I know there'll be a lot of you want to ask questions about all sorts of different things. So let me do that to begin with. Because, as I say, I do want to concentrate on your portfolio. But I've got to ask you about the BBC and the threat made by Donald Trump to sue the BBC today for $1 billion. What's your reaction to that?
Look, legal cases will have to take their course, and it wouldn't be appropriate for me to comment about that. But what I will say about the BBC is that I think it's an enormously important national institution. I was talking earlier on today in the House of Lords about our changes to the national curriculum, where we're introducing more media literacy, more opportunities for young people to learn about how to recognise mis and disinformation. And, you know, the BBC and the impartial and really well researched and well the high quality journalists that work for the BBC is an enormously important part of the way in which we get our news, and of course our entertainment as well.
Just a quick question on the budget, which I know obviously you can't reveal anything that's in the budget, even if you knew
Well, I don't know what
was
it
on.
is, so no, I can't.
But Rachel Reeves, bizarrely, has been doing lots of interviews before the budget, which is highly unusual for a Chancellor to do. And this afternoon, she more than hinted that she would be breaking the manifesto pledge on income tax rises. I mean, how do you recover, if that happens, how do you recover from that, breaking such a core manifesto pledge?
Well, I suspect what Rachel was also saying was that she's been clear about what the principles will be for her budget, and that is how we rebuild the NHS, how we manage to reduce the levels of national debt, and how we ensure that people have got more money in their pockets. And that's going to be the principles on which she will be making her decisions in the budget. We already know that we are facing an enormously difficult period. As the OBR have now recognised, the things that we knew had been difficult for the country, Brexit, the pandemic, the period of austerity, actually have impacted our productivity even more than we thought they would have done. And therefore, there's a real challenge for doing everything that we need to do as a government and not increasing borrowing in a way that would, if we weren't careful, take us back to the sort of dark days of the Liz Truss mini budget.
Oh, I could go for you on a lot of that, but let's.
I could see that in your eyes.
But let's talk about.
I'm right.
Let's talk about. No, I don't. Let's talk about skills. What's a V level?
So a V level is a new qualification that we're going to be introducing for 16-year-olds. At the moment, we have A levels. So if you know that you're academic, that's the way you like to learn, you think you're probably going to want to go on to university, that is a tried and tested route to get you to where you want to go. If you think, however, actually I would rather have learning that is more directly linked to a particular occupation, that's a bit more practical, where I'm assessed perhaps in a way that is more about, demonstrating what I can do as well as what I know, then if you're completely sure that you want to go into construction or health and care or digital, and you want to devote the whole of your time between 16 and 19 to that, you should do a T level. And T-levels are now growing in size, in success, in popularity. People are getting really good results out of them, good progression onto higher level apprenticeships and into university if they want to. But there are other people who know they want to learn in that more vocational way. They want something that links to a job, but they're not completely sure that they want to devote all of their study time to that. So they need something that offers them a bit more breadth. So a V level will be a qualification that will link to occupations where you can learn more practically, be assessed more practically, and it will give you a bit more flexibility than you've got at the moment. And it will create a clearer way to that sort of progression, that sort of outcome, than exists at the moment, where we've got 900 qualifications that sort of roughly fall in that area between A levels and T levels.
But in the end, any new qualification only works if employers respect it. How do you convince employers to take, well, not just V levels actually, but T levels seriously?
Well, you're absolutely right. And one of the differences in T levels, and it will also be the case for V levels, that hasn't always been the case for vocational qualifications, is that we'll say, OK, in T levels, for example, the occupational standards for that particular area have been designed by employers. It's not just how you convince them it's going to work for them. You actually base the course and the assessment around what employers have said they need for that occupation. And we'll do the same for V levels. So if you're doing a V level in construction, let's say, it will be based on standards that employers have said they need you to have.
Why aren't they being introduced until September 2027?
Well, if you think about it, that's pretty quick actually for a new qualification. And what we need to do is we're consulting on what they will look like at the moment. We need to work out, what the content of each of those qualifications is going to be. making sure that employers can see the link through to occupational standards. We need to give teachers the time to think about how they're actually going to go about teaching that, and then introduce them. And we'll actually also be introducing them what we call route by route. So we'll make sure that all of the qualifications in a particular area, let's say engineering, all make sense and fit together. And we'll also make sure that we're not closing down existing qualifications before we've got the new V-level in place, so we don't leave any gaps for students as we move to this new system.
So the V-level, is it entirely or almost entirely for 16 to 18-year-olds?
It is. We might in the future consider whether or not this is something that we could extend to adults, but it's, the really important time in somebody's life and learning is that point where they've done their GCSEs and then they're thinking, what is it I want to do next? What's the thing I want to do in my career? Where do I want to get to? And this is where they're going to be choosing the qualifications, all of which have to lead you somewhere, and they've got to be clear about what you're going to get out of the end of them.
So is it in a way saying to a 16-year-old, look, very happy if you think you want to go to university, but there are alternatives.
Exactly, yeah. And of course, one of the other alternatives might be an apprenticeship.
Yeah.
So, if you know that
but
you want to...
Can you run a V-level alongside an apprenticeship?
No, because an apprenticeship is essentially a job with learning attached to it. So you could, that's if you know that you want to really learn on the job, an apprenticeship would be the right thing to do for you. You could have V-levels, you could have 3 different areas of V-levels. You could have, because we're thinking that they should be the size of an A-level, you could do an A-level and 2 V-levels, for example. It gives you and the college or the sixth form more opportunity to build the course that makes sense for the student, what they're interested in, what they're good at, where they want to get to.
But isn't that a challenge for schools, particularly schools that maybe have the sixth form attached to the rest of the school, where they're going to say, well, we haven't got the teachers to do this, and we're already having to stop doing some A-levels because they're not very popular, and here you are giving us sort of another thing that we have to cope with.
Well, we're also making more money available for 16 to 19. Just this year, an additional 800, or the next academic year, an additional £800 million. But yeah, all colleges and schools need to make decisions about what it is that they're going to focus on, what they're going to deliver. And it may be that, you would want to think as a student, if you absolutely knew that you wanted to specialise in something very technical, you might think, well, actually, it would be worth my while going to a local college, for example, who are doing brilliant work, really well linked into employers, and where you may well get better facilities. Although there are lots of schools that are delivering T-levels, will, I'm sure, want to deliver V-levels because, of course, they'll be more manageable for schools and sixth forms to deliver.
Just before we go to break and we come to the calls, I can't remember what we were talking about a couple of months ago on the programme, and I said I would ask you about it next time I saw you, which is adult education. Mm-hmm. Does that come under your remit too? See, this growing portfolio she's managed to accumulate.
Oh, if you want a job done, give it to a busy woman.
I get the feeling that adult education has taken a bit of a back seat. So, I mean, when I was my high school, this is going back obviously into the 1980s. There's a real thriving adult education centre. Yeah. You could learn Dutch and really weird things, not just the sort of normal things. But I get the feeling that that's not the case so much now.
It's a fair comment, and there's been an enormous reduction in the value of adult education funding over the last 15 years or so. And to be perfectly honest, we haven't yet been able to turn that around. So adult education now tends to be focused on areas where people have got entitlements to learn. So if you haven't got your sort of GCSE grade 4 level in English or maths, if you need to learn English as a speaker of another language, if you have need to, for example, to get closer to the workplace, perhaps you need adult education that will help you to get into employment. That's where the focus tends to be, but also on areas of skills. So, we've announced over £1 billion worth of skills packages in areas like construction, digital, engineering, defence. Now, in those packages, there will be elements of adult education. So people who need to upskill, for example, in a digital area, they don't need perhaps a whole apprenticeship. They need to upskill, and perhaps they'll do a short course or what we might call a skills boot camp or another qualification that will help them to do that.
Right, we're going to come to your calls in a moment. 0345 6060 973. If you have a question about any aspect of skills, apprenticeships, even adult education, give us a call. Jackie Smith is here with me until 10. 0345 6060 973. It's 17 minutes past 9.
This is LBC.
It's that time of year again, which can only mean one thing. Save a third off roasting joints at Waitrose. Choose from tender beef silverside, succulent whole brined and seasoned chicken, or juicy beach smoked gammon. So, fire up your ovens and give winter a warm welcome with a third off roasting joints. Waitrose, the home of food lovers. Selected lines and stores subject to availability. Prices may vary in Channel Islands, Little Waitrose and Partners and Concessions. Offer ends 11th of November.
How's the business going? We're busier than ever, but struggling to get the staff we need. Recruiting can be such a distraction. We gave Job Centre Plus a try, and they've really helped us out. Really? Yeah, it was dead easy. We got our own employer advisor, Julie, who helped advertise our jobs, shortlisted candidates for us, and let us interview at the Job Centre. We've hired some great people, and Job Centre Plus really took the hassle out of it, and there was no fee.
Brilliant. That's straight on my to-do list.
Find out more at business.gov.uk/recruit. Eligibility criteria apply.
Amazon has increased funding for employees to £3,000 a year every year for career development. Like Juliet, she's now a trained technician. And to her, the sound of machinery in need of repair reminds her of how far she's come. In 2 years, she's landed her dream job, providing her with valuable skills. That's up to £3,000 every year for career development at Amazon. Eligibility conditions apply.
This is LBC with Iain Dale. Call 0345 6060 973.
18 minutes past 9. Somebody on a text says, Nick says, Jackie, hurrah, with lots of exclamation marks. Not many government ministers have that reaction from my listeners, it has to be said. Right, let's go to Tyler in Leeds. Now, you have to be nice to Tyler because he's one of my favourite callers. Hey up, Tyler.
Hey, I'm Mr. Dale, and good afternoon, good evening, even Baroness Smith. I really appreciate the work that Labour's doing on the skills agenda, and it seems like you've got a big brief, and it seems you're working well within the confines of the House of Lords. One of the things that was announced today was a £10 million skills trailblazer for North Yorkshire and some other areas of the UK. And I'm wondering how much, and it was basically to get economically inactive people and also people and businesses to sort of connect those two, like the unemployed with businesses. And I'm wondering if you think in the budget there'll be any further sort of money or devolution from sort of adult skills or sort of 16 to 19 skills funding to like devolved regional mayors, because I think it'll help deliver the policies that you want to do, get more people in work, and then maybe in the medium term reduce taxes because there's more people in work than on the welfare net. What do you think? Well, I like the work that you're doing and keep it up.
Oh, well, thank you, Tyler. I mean, you make a really important point because when it comes to quite a lot of areas of skills, and particularly in adults, but elements of 16 to 19 as well, it is quite often mayors and, their mayoral authorities that can bring together the things that will make a difference. So they can say, OK, in this area, we know that employers really want to see more investment in, let's say, clean energy, because that's a real priority for us here. But
it's a good economy, yeah.
So we know that, perhaps there aren't enough colleges that are offering it. So can we bring the colleges together with the employers to design the right sorts of courses? Can we make sure that there are placements for students that are doing T-levels? Can we make sure that there are apprenticeships for people? Can we be offering these skills boot camps that I was talking about? Shorter courses?
That's exactly right. And if I may, I think the way to sort of connect that is on the ground is with combined authorities, because the businesses and the charities and the little local councils, they are sometimes a bit disjointed. So if you work with the mayors, like as a department, with the skills training and devolution, they're in a more proactive place to be able to deliver packages that are offered, be it in terms of like green economic colleges, like you mentioned, bringing T levels and B levels together. So perhaps there could be an in-work element of doing A levels, because then that will, in addition, help firms choose like the best candidates and stop young people going NEET or not having out to do on evenings, for example. And that might be a way that you can communicate that to people in an effective way. Like, for example, in West Yorkshire, we've got a health tech cluster, and the combined authority brought together a lot of businesses at Ellen Road last week, and then connected that with colleges and local areas. And then hopefully that will then deliver more on these like advanced industries. So that's like an example of how the work that you're doing can actually translate into things that people can understand a little bit more, because obviously the complexities of the modern day, the nuance is great and the academia is great. It's more about how you translate that to the things that people can understand on the ground, or else people can just sort of switch off and listen to terrible racist populists like Nigel Farage, in my personal opinion.
Well, Tony, I think you're exactly right about what can happen at that level, and that's probably Tracy Brabin that was doing that work, isn't it? And she's doing a great job, and particularly on things like, that's a really good example on placements. In T levels, for example, you do a 45-day placement, and employers sometimes say, "Oh, well, we're not quite sure what we're taking on if we take on this student for 45 days." But then when they do, what they find is essentially they've got somebody who they're sort of almost managing to interview and as well as train over the period of 45 days. And those people often end up working for that employer. So they've saved all that money on, recruitment costs and things like that. And they've provided somebody with a fantastic experience as part of their T level.
Do you not think that,
money in the field? Well, sorry,
Jackie, do you not think that Tyler would make a very good apprentice skills minister, that you should take him on as your apprentice?
I think Tyler would make a brilliant skills minister, full stop. He appears to have all the right ideas going on.
Well, there's a reshuffles
soon. I feel people breathing down my neck.
I'm happy people just to listen and hear good ideas, like a good discussion. I'm a parish councillor, so get involved locally. And then,
well done.
Devolution.
Well done.
All right, Tyler, thanks for your call. Joseph says, my daughter is desperately looking for an apprenticeship in hairdressing and hairstyling, but struggling to find somewhere. Can the minister please tell me what support the government is giving to intended employers to provide apprenticeships to people like my daughter who's 19?
Yeah, well, I'm really sorry that your daughter isn't managing to find one, because hairdressing is a good example of somewhere where apprenticeships is very much the way into the industry. So sometimes this is a good example of what we were talking about with industry placements. Sometimes businesses think, well, we're not quite sure how to take on an apprentice. So we provide support, for example, through an apprenticeship ambassadors network to support smaller businesses to take on apprentices. We also offer we make sure that we're covering the costs of the training for apprenticeships where there are young people involved. And for example, you don't pay any national insurance contributions if you take on an apprentice. So we're trying to do all of those things to encourage employers to take people on. But also we've got, for example, I think if you go on to gov.uk and look for apprenticeships in your area, that will also give you details about where there might be apprenticeships. And I really hope that your daughter manages to find the way through to her apprenticeship and her career in hairdressing.
Zachary says, hi, Jacqueline. It's been very formal.
That's what my mum and dad used to call me when I was in trouble.
An honour to have you on the show. You made history as Britain's first female Home Secretary. Really, Home Secretary?
Did you not know? I was thinking.
No. Let's talk about skills gaps. As someone who works in talent development within the creative industries, I see firsthand how difficult it's becoming to match talent with opportunity, upskilling and future-proofing, all things I'm sure you're aware of. So can you tell us clearly what are the UK's most critical skills gaps right now? Which sectors are suffering most? And what's being done specifically to close those gaps rather than just relabel or rebrand expand existing schemes? Instead of simply throwing more money at schools and colleges, is the government actually working with major employers and corporations to make it a real priority to hire and develop graduates and young talent? And on that point, are we ever going to see a proper return of something like the Kickstart scheme, a serious funded route for young people to enter the workforce in areas like tech, design and the creative economy, rather than being left to patchwork internships or unpaid placements? Lastly, you've raised employer NI. It's a bit ironic if you're wanting smaller businesses to hire talent.
Okay, lots of questions there. Firstly, I can't reel off to you where the occupational gaps are.
Oh, I can.
But I know
bricklayers, plumbers, all the trades.
It's more than that. 900,000 gaps that we're going to need by 2030. The reason why I know that is because we set up Skills England in order to do the analysis, to be able to tell us, yes, in construction, but actually also in things like the creative industries. So we do know where those gaps are, and we're using that analysis to direct funding, direct new initiatives. And of course, we also, as a government, developed the industrial strategy where we said, look, there are 8 sectors that are really important to help to grow the economy, and creative industries is one of them. And we are working alongside, having said that, to develop a sort of jobs plan that will outline how we can get people into the sort of work that the creative industries need. And I would just say as well, of course, we've recently, when it comes to school level, just last week announced the result of our independent curriculum and assessment review. One of the things that we'll be doing is reintroducing into schools some of the creative subjects that were squeezed out by the last government's pretty tight way of thinking about what you should study in school.
The point that Zachary made about national insurance, I mean, do you accept that has been a jobs killer, that rise that Rachel Reeves imposed in the last budget?
Well, we've actually seen an increase in the numbers of people in work over the last year.
Well,
one of the other things,
increase in unemployment.
Interestingly, it's possible for those two things to happen at the same time. We've seen a reduction in the numbers of people who are inactive. In other words, they're coming into the labour market, and that's why unemployment goes up. But also, let's not forget what that national insurance rise has gone to fund. One of the things it's gone to fund quite significantly is the NHS, because one of the things that stops people from being able to work is sitting on a waiting list for years on end. So I think employers recognise...
The waiting lists have gone down comparatively little.
Although we have got 5 million more NHS appointments, and that's what that money is aimed at doing. Because you've got to admit, haven't you, Ian, if you've got, as you have had in your time, a dodgy hip or something like that...
All right. Charming. Invite her on my programme and she has to talk about my dodgy hip.
I mean, you fell over, so you got your hip replaced quite quickly. But there are other people who've been waiting for lengthy periods of time, not able to work. So there is a link between investment that you put into the NHS and support for employers. You know, of course I recognise the impact of national insurance contributions for employers. But I was actually making the point that if you take on a young person or if you take on an apprentice, you're not paying national insurance contributions for them.
Right, lots more calls, lots more questions to come to Jackie Smith, the Skills Minister, 0345 6060 973. Kevin says, and you can have 2.5 minutes to think about your answer to this one. My question to Jackie is, what does she think about Reform UK saying the minimum wage is too high? It's 9:30 on LBC. Let's get the news headlines from Tim Daly.
President Trump is threatening to sue the BBC for $1 billion. He says a lawsuit will begin unless it removes edited footage of a speech given on the day of the Capitol riot. Deportation proceedings are beginning against the woman convicted of harassing the family of the missing toddler Madeleine McCann. Julia Van Delt was given a 6-month prison sentence, which was less than the time she'd spent on remand. And a teenager's been arrested after a 4-year-old girl was critically injured by a firework at Burnley in Lancashire. Police are questioning a 15-year-old boy. LBC weather, a band of rain will push across eastern areas overnight. Clear spells will develop behind it before more rain arrives in the west. There'll be a low in the far north of around 5 degrees.
This is LBC. Weekdays from 7 a.m.
Why is there delay?
Straight to the point.
This government is unravelling everywhere you look.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast on LBC.
How can that make sense to anyone?
Listen on our free Global Player app or the new LBC app. Downloaded now from your app store. LBC.
I'm aware that I don't say that I love you enough, but I do. I want to say that I love the way your hair bounces as you walk. The way you interrupt my stories, yet you still tell them even better than me. I want to tell you that track is you is my favourite you, and the fact that even on holiday, the right side of the bed is your side of the bed. But you of all people know that I just struggle to say what I mean.
This Christmas, if you can't find the words, find the gift. John Lewis.
How's the business going?
We're busier than ever, but struggling to get the staff we need.
Recruiting can be such a distraction. We gave Job Centre Plus a try, and they've really helped us out.
Really?
Yeah, it was dead easy. We got our own employer advisor, Julie, who helped advertise our jobs, shortlisted candidates for us, and let us interview at the Job Centre. We've hired some great people, and Job Centre Plus really took the hassle out of it, and there was no fee.
Brilliant. That's straight on my to-do list.
Find out more at business.gov.uk/recruits. Eligibility criteria apply.
Angela Rippon, what are you doing here?
I've come to tell you about using energy flexibly, Albert.
Flexibly?
Yes, smart meter owners could get rewarded for moving their energy use, like doing the laundry at off-peak times.
So I don't need to do the splits?
No, Albert. Nobody wants to see that.
Get rewarded for using energy flexibly, only with a smart meter. Search Get a Smart Meter today.
Eligibility and availability vary. Consumer action required. Reward schemes and tariffs available to selected customers from selected suppliers.
Iain Dale. Text 84850. This is LBC.
9:32 is the time on LBC. Jackie Smith, Baroness Jackie Smith, the Skills Minister and Labour peer, is with us taking your calls on all aspects of skills, apprenticeships, V-levels. We've already explained, or Jackie's already explained what they are. Let's go back to that question from Kevin, who says, my question to Jackie is, what does she think about Reform UK saying the minimum wage is too high? And that's £12.71. I could have done a Ferrari on you then and asked you what it was, couldn't I? Damn, missed out on that.
It's £12.71.
But that translates to 25,000, which in old money, that was seen as a good salary. Do you think Reform UK are onto something, particularly for small businesses?
No, I don't. And, I'm long enough in the tooth that I remember when the Labour government introduced the minimum wage back in 1997, 98, and we stayed up all night in order to get it through Parliament in the teeth of opposition from the then Conservatives, who said the national minimum wage is going to destroy employment, it's going to bring businesses to their knees. And actually, by the time we got to 2010, we had even a Conservative government who felt that the national minimum wage was the right thing to do, supporting people into work, supporting good employers from being undercut by others. Of course, it's important that you take a careful look at what you're doing with the national minimum wage. This is why we've had the Low Pay Commission considering the levels that it should be at. But I think going back to the period before the national minimum wage would be precisely the sort of
I don't think that they were suggesting that. I think what they were saying was that if it gets to a level that employers just think is unsustainable, that inevitably will mean that it will cost jobs. Or an employer won't take on as many people as they might have intended to.
Yeah, but that's what people feared was going to happen when it was introduced. And because of the careful way that it was both introduced and has been uprated and the evidence that is used to back that up, we haven't seen some of those things happening in the economy. In fact, it's supported people into work and it's supported good employers.
Right, let's go to a call. John is in Leytonstone. Hi, John.
Oh, hello. Yes, when I was at Oxford, I studied social planning. There's a very good book by a chap called Gordon Cherry called Social Planning. And I think for a Labour government, they should introduce this discipline into local government because I wrote to Boris Johnson when he was the Prime Minister and sent off my report on this to him. I never got a reply. I was really interested in using social planning in the sense of community development officers and social planners to for the levelling up agenda that Boris had. I never got a reply from him at all. I think in regard to immigration, what seems to be happening is that people are bringing over immigrants, just dumping them in ghettos and forgetting about them, whereas what they want to do is to get the social planners in there to integrate people into society.
Okay, let me. Do you understand what he means by social planning?
Not really, although...
Okay, well, John, explain just very briefly, what do you mean by social planning?
Well, I mean, if you read the book by Gordon Cherry, I advise...
Well, we can't do that at the moment, so you've got to sum it up for us in less than 30 seconds.
But I mean, you have a social development officer or a community development officer in new towns, actually, because I did my special study on it at Oxford, and I went out to about 5 new towns, and what they do is they do things like get in social facilities, community centres, all that sort of thing, introduce resources into these areas to make it a cohesive society, rather than people rushing off to London at the weekend for a night out, try and encourage people to spend time locally in new towns.
Well,
and all that sort of thing. And,
okay.
And
when were you at Oxford, John?
So when was I at Oxford? I was at Oxford between 68 and 72.
Oh, bit before Jackie was.
Yeah.
I was wondering whether you might have met, but clearly not.
Yeah. I mean, John, I think this slightly takes me back to the conversation that we were having with Tyler. So first of all, I completely agree with you that having a more local or regional way of thinking about what are the needs of communities, how are all the services that you need going to be brought together in order to promote not just cohesion but economic success and opportunity in an area, is better done at that regional level than at a national level. I agree with you about that. Secondly, of course, what you're talking about sounds very much like what this government announced with the Pride in Place contributions, so £2 million to quite small communities around the country, with the not the suggestion, the requirement that how that is spent is determined by local people working together to think about what it is that they need in those particular communities. It's called Pride in Place, and it's exactly about trying to recognise that local people quite often know best about what it is that they need in their areas, but they need the support to then be able to fund those ideas.
John, thank you very much for that. Robin says, I'm a local builder, and to be frank, Rachel Reeves has killed the apprenticeship by increasing the minimum wage for an apprentice. To pay a 16-year-old £300 a week, I have to earn £430 a week once all my tax liabilities are met. A 16-year-old does not produce work that I can recoup my costs. It's a joke. I mean, that's a fair point, isn't it?
Well, I mean, the apprenticeship minimum wage, of course, is lower than the ordinary minimum wage, which some people think is wrong, but it is precisely to be able to help with those sorts of problems. And it depends, I suppose, on how you think, if you need to take on people, actually taking on an apprentice, being able to train them in the ways in which you want to work, but getting support with that training from the local college and funding to help you to take on a young apprentice might be better than simply taking on somebody who isn't going to develop those skills and therefore help to contribute to your business.
Roger says, my kid can't get on an apprenticeship because of the 3-year rule. It needs abolishing. What is that?
I don't know quite what he means by the 3-year rule, to be honest with you.
Okay, well, Roger, you need to contact us again, because I don't know what that means either. Right, let's go to David, who's in Bayswater. Hello, David.
Yeah, hi, Ian. Hi, Jackie. I've been desperate to ask this question, honestly. I was a teacher, and what I noticed was we had in the sixth form, we had a lot of students who came from secondary school without maths and English. I think roughly 30% of people fail maths and English at secondary school. So they then come to college and they fail it again. So they go off and they're stuck not being able to get an apprenticeship because I think they're daunted by the fact that if they go on, try and get an apprenticeship, they'll be forced to retake the GCSE English and Maths, and they just fed up with it. And this provision, allows the employer to get the funding for the apprenticeship. Only at 19 is that provision taken away, and then the young person doesn't have to do maths and English. They can negotiate it with the employer. So I'm suggesting, Jackie, we should lower the age to 16 so that young people are not forced to redo exams, which really they hate, and I think is stopping them from applying for apprenticeships because they think I'll be forced to retake maths and English. I was wondering what you think about that idea.
Well, David, first of all, you're absolutely right that once you get to 19, we have changed the conditions of getting onto an apprenticeship. In fact, I think I talked about it the last time I was on here doing a phone-in. So now you still need to do English and maths, but it's what fits with the job, and you don't have to do a separate qualification. But I do think for younger people, getting to that grade 4 in your GCSE maths and your GCSE English opens up all sorts of opportunities later on in your life. It's a sort of foundation for succeeding later on. So if we can possibly help people to get there before they get to 19, we should try to do that. That's why we have introduced more funding for colleges to give additional time for those who need to resit their English and maths. But we've also recognised that there's no point just keep resitting an exam if you're some way away from getting it, because that's just demoralising for everybody and a waste of time and money. So we will introduce a new lower level maths and English qualification that will enable you to prepare for your GCSE. So it will fill you in with some of the basics that you've obviously not managed to pick up in school, and it will therefore give you a better chance of then going on to get your GCSE. Right. And that sort of ends that treadmill of taking and failing the exam.
Could I just reply to that? I think basically from what I've seen, because I've taught maths and English myself, they're not fit for purpose because there's a lot of content that is not necessary for employers. So what I think we should have is an exam where the Employers Federation comes together, they make a list of the necessary skills, and by giving this kudos, giving this exam a lot of merit and making people aware of it, it won't be a disadvantage if people don't have maths and English, because honestly, a lot of the content is useless. The kids never use it again, and they're being judged and not being able to do it and not getting jobs in the future. So we need to have a complete rethink about maths and English GCSE. I think they're impediments to educate, to a lot of people, and it's not allowing our youth to flourish.
Well, that's part of the reason, of course, why earlier on in school as well, we need to think about how we make sure that people have got the basics early on and then can build on that in a way that's going to get more of them to that GCSE level before they even get to 16. But I still think, David, that it is important. We do need to not give up on getting young people who, if they possibly can, to that grade 4 in their English or maths, because it's so important for the rest of their lives.
Thank you very much indeed, David. Mark says, why are apprenticeships not afforded the same government loans university students get? I cannot think of a reason why this would not be a great contribution to the skills gap we are always talking about.
Well, first of all, because, of course, an apprenticeship is a job, so you're being employed and then you're getting government support for the training that goes alongside it. But it is a fair point that we should widen where you get loan support. And this is one of the reasons why we're introducing the lifelong learning entitlement. And that will be available. So that's essentially student finance loans for any qualification, level 4, level 5, level 6. So level 6 is a sort of degree level qualification. Level 4 and 5 are areas where we don't have enough people qualified to that level in the UK. It's a sort of they still are called this, but HNDs and HNCs, that type of level. And we will provide student finance in order for people to study to that level. And of course, that was the area which the Prime Minister focused on in his speech at Labour Party conference, where he set this target that we need to increase to 66% the numbers of young people who are getting qualifications of level 4, 5 or 6. So not just university degrees, but that missing middle, those level 4 and 5s as well.
Now, remember that neither of us knew what the 3-year rule is.
Yeah.
Well, we do now know because Chris has put it on my screen. The 3-year rule appears, in capital letters, to be a rule that anyone wanting to start an apprenticeship must have been resident in the UK for 3 years before it begins.
Well, there are conditions around free education, student loans, and I suspect apprenticeships as well, that say, actually, yes, you need to have a sort of, you need to have been here a period of time in order to benefit from that public spending, and also that you need to be here. You need to be, if you've come into the country, you need to be here long enough to complete the apprenticeship. Otherwise, what we're doing is we're giving public money for people who are not then actually going to achieve the qualification. And once they have got it, they're not going to be staying in the country and using it for the benefit of the country either.
Gratuitous question from me. What's the best thing about being in the House of Lords? Just so I know when the time comes.
Okay, Lord Dale. There is, you're surrounded by lots of interesting people. It's slightly less.
And you're one of the youngest.
And I'm one of the. Yeah, it makes you feel young. It's more the sort of challenge to you as a minister is more detailed in many ways than it is in the Commons, and you can't revert to some of the political knockabout that you...
they don't like that, do they?
They're not so... I mean, I was, when I was in the House of Commons, sometimes a little bit on the lively side, and I have to rein myself in and behave better in the House of Lords, so it's probably good for my family. But
also, I think what a lot of our listeners won't realise is that you just don't speak on skills in the House of Lords. You have to speak for everything in the Department of Education. Now, that must be quite challenging.
I am a Jackie of all trades when it comes to the House of Lords. Yeah, you're absolutely right. So I am the Lords Minister. And, for those people that are going, oh, haven't they got enough elected MPs? Why do they have to put somebody in the Lords? Well, there is a Lords Minister for every department. And as you say, whatever the question is in education or now parts of DWP, I have to answer it. So I do everything in my area, but I also do the school curriculum, which I was doing today. I do, next week I'm answering questions on music and dance schools, on special educational needs. I'm taking through the bill that is improving children's social care and introducing breakfast clubs and free school meals and reforming schools.
VAT on schools.
That actually was a Treasury measure, but...
were you rather relieved at that?
No, I think it's absolutely the right thing to do. Focus the money on the 93% of children in state schools.
On that bombshell, let's go to a break. It's 9:48.
Coming up at 10 on LBC, Ben Kentish.
The latest BBC controversy has cost the Director General his job, but do you still have confidence in that institution? Plus, the biggest hint yet from Rachel Reeves about what she's planning for the budget.
Ben Kentish at 10. Listen on our free Global Player app or our new LBC app.
At Laithwaite's, we go to great lengths to bring you great wine. We go far and wide. Searching high, and we mean really high, and low, and we mean stored deep underground in a cave low. Off the shelf? We don't go there. Off the beaten track? We certainly go there. And the best bit is, we even come to you. Order now at laithwaites.co.uk. Laithwaite's. We stop at nothing to bring you great wine.
How's the business going?
We're busier than ever, but struggling to get the staff we need.
Recruiting can be such a distraction. We gave Job Centre Plus a try, and they've really helped us out.
Really?
Yeah, it was dead easy. We got our own employer advisor, Julie, who helped advertise our jobs, shortlisted candidates for us, and let us interview at the Job Centre. We've hired some great people, and Job Centre Plus really took the hassle out of it, and there was no fee.
Brilliant. That's straight on my to-do list.
Find out more at business.gov.uk/recruit. Eligibility criteria apply.
Angela Rippon, what are you doing here?
I've come to tell you about using energy flexibly, Albert.
Flexibly?
Yes, smart meter owners could get rewarded for moving their energy use, like doing the laundry at off-peak times.
So I don't need to do the splits?
No, Albert. Nobody wants to see that.
Get rewarded for using energy flexibly, only with a smart meter. Search Get a Smart Meter today.
Eligibility and availability vary. Consumer action required. Reward schemes and tariffs available to selected customers from selected suppliers.
Buying a home on a holiday park was the retreat you always wanted. But then came unexpected site fee increases. And that was before the dramatic loss in value. If you bought a home on a holiday park in the UK, you may have been missold. holidayparkadvicecentre.co.uk could help you receive thousands in compensation. Text ASSIST to 78900. That's ASSIST to 78900.
Leading Britain's conversation. Iain Dale. Alexa, send a comment to LBC.
10 to 10 on LBC. Jackie Smith is here taking your calls. I feel as if I should call you my lady, but I just can't bring myself to.
Yes, you should call me my lady.
Right, let's go to Christoph in Wembley. Hello, Christoph.
Hi, Ian. Yes, the reason I rang is perhaps about a year ago I rang you, admittedly there was a different topic under discussion, and I made a suggestion to you, and you said that you were seeing the skills minister in a few days' time and that you would put my suggestion to her.
Oh, God, I hope I did. What was it?
Okay, here goes. But, I mean, mine obviously seems relevant now. However, I think we could do the country some good, two countries, in fact, Ukraine and the UK, if we got asylum seekers to work on producing ammunition for Ukraine, which I understand is.
Oh no, I do remember that now, and I did think it was quite a good idea. But I'm going to confess that I don't think I put this to Jackie.
No. Well, so I mean, you know, the cost of the country of housing asylum seekers is very controversial. Perhaps, and I feel they are an unused resource that could be of value, and maybe not just ammunition. I think that was a sort of topic you were discussing at the time. So yeah.
Well, can I tell you, she's making copious notes, so that's a good sign. What do you think?
Well, first of all, Christoph, I mean, we, as you know, as a government, and are enormously supportive of the Ukrainian people in the defence of their country, including providing weaponry and support with their defence. So I might be tempted by, you know, what more we can do to support our defence industry, which we are doing as part of the defence industrial strategy and the increased money that we're spending on defence. There is a bit of an issue when it comes to the idea with respect to asylum seekers, though, because we don't let asylum seekers work up to the point at which their case has been determined. And the reason for that, of course, is that, as we've had lots of discussion about, being able to come to the country and work immediately, it's argued, could be a pull factor that would cause more people to come. So we haven't tended to let asylum seekers work up until this point.
Other countries do, though, don't they?
I'm not quite sure what happens in other countries, but it's something back in my Home Secretary days that people used to raise with me. And I do think at a point at which we're trying to discourage people, apart from those who definitely need to come here for safety and to escape, we shouldn't be developing the sorts of pull factors that might make the issues more difficult.
Christoph, thank you very much indeed. Let's go to Richard in Herne Bay. Hello, Richard.
Yeah, good evening, guys. Great show, and thank you, Jackie, for taking the time to take some questions. For me, I really struggle with the national curriculum, with the exception of English, maths and science, which I understand are core subjects. But we seem to have, a lot of schools locally, we lose our metalwork, our woodwork, our hands-on skills. And I wonder why we don't have like a local or a living curriculum. What that local area needs, we introduce, or even down to like the basics of, if that area is building loads of houses, we're going to need bricklayers in 5 years. Why are we not laying a bricklaying GCSE on? And we keep changing from letters to numbers, OCEs, GCSEs, A-levels. And I think a lot of employers struggle to understand it. I know I do when I'm going through interviews now. Why we can't just simplify it so that everything is the same and we actually train people from that young age for what we're going to need during their working life.
Yeah, well, I mean, first of all, Richard, as I think I touched on earlier, last week we announced the results of the curriculum review that we've done and the new national curriculum that we'll be introducing. And one of the things that we'll be bringing back into schools is the opportunity to do more creative subjects, for example, design and technology. So we'll be trying to reintroduce that back into the curriculum. Then when we get to 16, I think you're really right that what we need is much more of a link between what employers need locally and what, for example, colleges are providing. And that's one of the reasons why we're developing what we call technical excellence colleges. So we've started with 10 construction colleges, and we've said, OK, existing colleges that are really good at construction skills, we'll make you essentially sort of beacons for developing those construction skills, developing new curricula that meet what employers need, working with other colleges to help to develop the teachers and the ways of teaching that will support that particular area. So you're right, and what we quite often see in further education colleges actually is really good relationships between those colleges and employers, and we want to make sure as a government that we're supporting that.
Thank you very much indeed, Richard. Daniel says, could you ask Jackie if she's ever tried looking for an apprenticeship? My son is at our local college on a level 2 plumbing course. We rang 68 different local plumbing firms and all of them said they aren't taking on apprentices at the moment. I mean, that seems astonishing.
Well, Daniel, I have, not for myself, but to check that, the systems for trying to find an apprenticeship are working. But the truth is, we have, some people say we should be doing more to encourage people to take apprenticeships. The problem we've got at the moment is actually we haven't got enough employers offering apprenticeships. Sometimes that's because they're not sure how to go about doing it, and that's where we bring in the apprenticeship ambassadors and other support that I was talking about earlier. Sometimes it's because they're not clear that they'll get financial support to help them to do it. Sometimes it's because they just don't need the labour. But I understand the issue, and we are very keen and working hard to try and get more employers to be supported to take on apprentices so that your son will get the sort of opportunities.
Don't they need more incentives to do so?
Well, that's why, for example, we've introduced new foundation apprenticeships that provide even more support to employers to be able to take on people who perhaps aren't quite ready to really focus down in a particular area, but where the employer will be able to have support to take them on to let's say in construction, to get a sort of broad understanding of construction, and then they can focus down on the area that's going to be most helpful for them and the business.
All of those 68 firms, they know that there aren't enough plumbers around. They know that they've got more work than they can cope with. So why on earth wouldn't they want to take on an apprentice?
Well, sometimes, as I say, it's sometimes because they don't know what support is out there to help them to take on an apprentice. And I was talking just today about what more we need to do through the small business service, for example, to help small businesses to understand the support that's out there to help them take on an apprentice.
Unbelievably, we've reached the end of our time. Thank you very much indeed.
My pleasure.
Some nice comments about your performance on the text there. So you can go home and sleep peacefully tonight. Thank you for all of your calls and messages this evening. I'm back tomorrow from 7. If you missed any of this evening's show, you can listen back on our free Global Player app or the new LBC app, which you can download for free from your app store now. Coming up at 1 on LBC, it's Jim Diamond. But right now, here's Ben Kentish.
Iain, thank you very much indeed. Have a very good evening to you this Monday night. Coming up.
I stepped down over the weekend because the buck stops with me. But I'd like to make one thing very clear. BBC News is not institutionally biased.
Crisis engulfs the BBC again as the Director General and the Chief Executive of BBC News hand in